Assalamu alaikum everyone, and welcome to the Muslim Game Changers podcast, where we bring you inspiring stories from the best and brightest of the Muslim world. I'm your Hussein, and I'm very excited to take you on a journey of discovery featuring high-profile Muslim leaders from all around the globe. Welcome back to the Muslim Game Changer podcast, everyone. This is the final episode of the first season. Honestly, I'm so happy. Alhamdulillah. Can't thank you enough for sticking with us, and I want to thank also all the guests which have partaken in this project. If you thought the first season was up to your expectations, then believe me, you'll be even more pleased with the second one. I already have a few guests prepared for you. Today, really excited to have Dawar Aamir with us. He's a software engineer level 1 who's committed to continuous learning. An example is just completed the AWS Cloud Practitioner exam, which we talked about in one of the previous episodes. So I invite everyone, if they want to broaden their skill set, please invest in this certification. It's a really great one. A motto he lives by is to combine hard work with faith and witness his prayers get answered. Alhamdulillah. Fun fact about Dawar, outside of work, he loves hitting the gym. Little quotes on the matter by a Greek philosopher, Aristotle, with "We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but a habit." That was all for me. We're excited to have Dawar on the show today to share his insight with our listeners. Assalamu alaikum, Dawar. How are you doing today?
Good, alhamdulillah. How are you, brother?
I couldn't be more happy because it's the last one of the first season. So for me, there's a huge symbolic behind it. About the first question, because people do not know you and it's the opportunity to get to know you a little bit. Can you share with us where you're based right now? And also, where were you born? Is it a different location? Please share it with us.
Sure. So I was actually originally born in Lahore, Pakistan. I moved here when I was about 3 years old. And I have lived in Maryland, specifically in the States, since then. But my current job, it is hybrid and it's based out of Delaware. So I have about an hour commute 3 times to the office, but I do have 2 nice days at home as well. So it's nice.
Excellent. How would you compare? Because I think I know it by name because Delaware is quite famous in the world. Could you describe us like a bit Delaware? How is it looking like for the people who do not know, who are not from the States? And also Maryland, what type of difference do you think is mainly between those 2 cities?
Sure. So there's not that much difference, I would say, especially specifically in the area that I grew up in, Maryland in Harford County. It's very similar to the city that I work in, Wilmington. So if you want to raise a family in a suburban area with people that are just nice, they go about their day, it's very routine. You'll run into, the same people every day. If you're fine with that, it's a really nice, calm environment to grow in your career and wherever else you may want to. But that being said, there is parts that are a little scary sometimes. They're a little bit more rural. So people may not know of, actual Muslims who are, just regular people as well. They kind of do have, unfortunately, that misconception about us, which I've ran into here and there, unfortunately. But I think that's everything that we've been trialed with in life is for a reason. So alhamdulillah, I was able to come out of those situations where there was some hate crimes that have happened to me personally as well. But again, I think that was a trial for me to really grow as a person and be able to combat all of those stereotypes and still show kindness so I can change the view of those people.
Amazing. What an amazing philosophy you have, brother. Honestly, God bless you for this. And you set the example. Honestly, this is the behavior to have and huge inspiration. Thank you for sharing this also with us. Feeling super blessed that you shared this on the podcast with us. Brother, I wanted to know, psychologically, human beings, when we are in big cities, we want to be in smaller cities. And those ones who have spent their entire life in small cities, they are dreaming only of one thing, going in huge cities. What stage are you in right now? Do you think you're happy with what you have? Or do you think that you would want something huge? I saw, for instance, I was looking at geography and I saw that, for instance, Maryland is close to New York. For you, do you feel that you're happy with what you have? Because me, for instance, I'm at that stage of life where I want really a small city. I enjoy my family, etc. So I wanted to know what stage were you in?
So I've been actually in that stage of living in that small city for most of my life, almost 2 decades. But Alhamdulillah, I think like the positioning of where I live, it allows me to still go into the city like Baltimore or even New York or DC, as you mentioned. DMV is a very nice area that you get a lot of versatility. So if you want to just like go out and explore the city and have that, time, you can, but then you can also like come home, which I personally love, just being close to family. And again, I'm a routine person, so just having that routine on a day-to-day basis, whereas I think in big cities, it's almost new every single day, which is a nice thing. But I think because I have that opportunity to go there on the weekends or long holidays with friends and stuff, I don't mind like not having it all the time.
I can totally relate, brother. I wanted to know, Dawar, you shared with us certain items already, but I wanted to know what has been your experience living as a Muslim in Bel Air precisely. Because, we do not know if you have, for instance, mosques, if you have community centers, what type of immigration is in place. So if you could share with us what has been your experience living as a Muslim, were you the only Muslim in class or were you like with, I don't know, Somalians, brother from Bangladesh, Pakistan, etc.? Can you share with us?
So growing up, it was very slim. Like the only other Muslim would be like my brother, because we're pretty close in age. So like that was basically kind of it. But because of that, when there was more Muslims coming to the community, like we became very tight knit, and it was and a great opportunity because I think what ends up happening, unfortunately, for a lot of us is when we move to the States, we don't feel like, especially if we live in areas that don't have our people or, even people that practice our faith with us, we kind of deter from it, and it makes it hard for us to like appreciate who we are in our own skin and our faith. But what my brother and I acknowledged at a very young age was this, and we realized that there's not that many people in media that are pushing all this kind of stuff. So when we were in middle school, actually, we started like a YouTube channel. It's called Ronal Pono. It blew up just a little bit. Like
Amazing.
yeah, like we basically were combating like getting ahead of the bullying before. So like we watched like 8 Mile growing up. So learning from Eminem about using your own like things that people would say against you, but then making jokes of that about it. So they can't even use it against you, but you also teach them about you in a really clever way. So we were able to get like the Youth Excellence Award from our like governor of Maryland for our efforts on our YouTube channel. And like it was really cool because we did at the same time, like, yeah, it was jokes, but we taught everybody around us, just white people, black people about, and Christians about like Islam in general, South Asians in general, to the point that even like my friends one day, like they all decided to wear like shalwar kameezes to school with me. And we all just like rocked them in the school. And that was like a really cool moment for me. That's been the growing up. It's been a change that we've kind of like had to be the forefront of. But alhamdulillah, like once you like make people aware that we're just like everybody else, then you're gonna get that same love back.
Honestly, that was amazing to hear that you were a kid and you were already like being proactive, trying to change things at your little scale. I found like the YouTube channel and the award, like this is huge inspiration. I hope people can get inspired. It's true that being in France, I can relate on some things, but at least me, when I grew up like in the hood of France, and there was a lot of black Muslims, Arabic Muslims. So at least I had people, with me, etc. But you had only your brothers. So honestly, massive respect for this. I wanted to know, brother, in the States, this is what all the time amazes me, because from one state to the other, there's so much discrepancies in terms of policies. For instance, in Chicago, we had a brother coming from, it's so diverse. People are so open-minded. So I wanted to know, can you tell us, because for the non-American audience, it's true that they don't know the States as much as you do. Can you tell us, like, for instance, certain states which are known to be very open-minded, etc., so that it can inspire the rest of the world and give them relief also on the image of the States outside of the borders?
Sure. And like I said, there's always outliers in everything, but in general, you can find like a lot of peace in the bigger cities because there's so much diversity there. So people already are well aware of Muslims, South Asians, or wherever your background is coming from. In New York, even, you see recently they passed the policy to openly allow the Adhan to play out loud. So Like there's even major policies that are being changed. So, it's not as scary as it might seem sometimes. Like it's becoming very, very progressive, alhamdulillah.
This is a very good point, honestly. And I saw the Adhan in New York. This is also following. I don't know if our brothers and sisters, so I'm talking to the audience here. I invite you to really see during Ramadan when they were doing Taraweeh in Times Square. I invite people to go see the images on YouTube. I had thrills. It was amazing to see.
It was amazing to see that out in the open, in public, in Times Square. Yeah, beautiful.
But can you tell us if there are mosques in Maryland, just out of curiosity?
So we have established mosques, but in my community in Harford County, we actually are, inshallah, trying to work on building like an official infrastructure one, because growing up, we haven't had like an official place to call like a mosque. It's more so like we're in community centers and neighborhoods and praying in those centers. And we've just been trying to slowly like acquire more of South Asians and more Muslims in general in our community, so we can raise the funds to have like a proper establishment for us to like go to in my county. But there is mosques, including in Baltimore, the ISB Masjid, which even former President Barack Obama visited. So there is definitely amazing masjids to come into in Maryland. But in Harford County, inshallah, we're working on building our own amazing infrastructure too.
Amazing. By the way, Maryland, I saw some images on Google to get curious. It's a really beautiful city. And I trust the Pakistanis to do great things. I think in our community, Pakistanis, Turkish are really great communities at entrepreneurship. So I have full faith they will do amazing things. I wanted to know, Dawar, my brother. In France, for instance, I try to hide my Muslim identity at work. I try to never say I'm Muslim. I try to keep it to myself, I just wanted to know, how do you balance your professional career with your faith and personal life? So for instance, I will give you an example to answer this question. I cannot pray Jumu'ah. I have to work on the time where I'm supposed to pray. For Ramadan, I don't have any accommodation. So I just wanted to know, how do you balance your professional career with your faith? Do you have the time for the prayers? Do you have the time for Jumu'ah, etc.?
So I don't know if it's like a full-on company-wide policy, but alhamdulillah, I think by case basis, JP is very accommodating, including that in my own like office building, when I go to the office, we have a dedicated prayer room that has Jan namazes, so you can pray all of your prayers whenever you need to. You can take your breaks to go pray. And also one of my days, which is today, Friday, which is Jumu'ah, that's one of the days that I actually requested to change into a remote day, so I could go pray my Jumu'ah prayer, and I have like a dedicated like meeting slot. So everyone is aware on my team that, hey, if they ping me during this time, like I'm away at prayer. So no one usually does disturb that. And even during Ramzan, I personally, because of the line of work I'm in, I do still have to go to the office, but they allow me to kind of like, if I come in late because I'm tired or, need to leave early because of like any issues, they're more than accommodating. But I do know some of my friends were able to even get full remote 30 days for Ramadan. So JP, I would say, is very like accommodating towards faith.
And this is what I would tell our brothers and sisters. Thank you so much, Dawar, for sharing this with us. That the US, honestly, I feel the corporate world has such brilliant policies.
Yeah. Now, mind you, you do have to advocate for yourself. If you don't speak up on it, then it's not going to be offered to you. But if you speak up about it, it will be offered to you.
Oh, thank you so much for clarifying. This is very important. I invite you, everyone, to look at the other episodes that I did with people from the States at Accenture, Google, etc. Honestly, the corporate companies have great policies, but as Dawar said, this is a perfect point. And I'm not an American person, so listen to the experts here. But we talked about the faith, the spiritual aspect out of it. And now I want to focus a bit on the corporate world so that we can inspire our brothers and sisters, inshallah. Can we rewind the time a bit to the 18-year-old version of Dawar? Can you walk us through your academic and professional experience from the 18-year-old Dawar to today? So what have you done, whether at school or, for instance, at work, the little internships, etc., to get to where you are today?
Sure. So this is a perfect opportunity to allow you guys to learn from my mistakes. So at 18, I wasn't even in anywhere software realm at all. I was going towards college for a mass communications degree, which I have a bachelor's degree in advertising. And during my colleging, I was getting the grades, alhamdulillah, but I wasn't taking internship seriously or networking seriously. So it became a huge challenge after college to try to get your foot in the door because these companies look for experience. And if you know somebody like that can refer you in, which I didn't have either of those working in my favor to the point that I had to work, odd jobs just to support myself until like I found a coding boot camp, which is 6 months long. And that was during COVID. So I was like working different jobs, like working in a gym as a trainer. I was working at Burger King at some point. So I did all of these jobs just to, I still wanted to make money and be able to support myself. But then when I found the boot camp, which is 6 months long, that was a huge, huge learning curve. Nothing happens overnight. You basically have to, with these coding boot camps, you're learning 6 months, condensing what people have a computer science degree 4 years, condensing that into 6 months. So it definitely like is a huge, huge learning curve, and you have to really be in the mindset that you're gonna be willing to work through all of the problem solving. So that was a huge struggle. I wanted to quit multiple times, but I knew that I had to like power through it and lots of prayers, of course, including my mom's. I think that's what genuinely got me through it. It was the 6 months of the boot camp, and then you get 6 months as a consultant to see if you actually know what you're doing. So I had a 6 month consulting opportunity with JP, and then from there, alhamdulillah, I was able to get converted on as a full-time software engineer. So the road was not that straight. So I'm letting you guys know right now, definitely take opportunity of internships and networking when you can, because that plays a huge role in it.
Guys, the prayer of the mom is immense. It has a power that we don't have.
Exactly.
And guys, let us admire a bit us Europeans, the American mindset. Dawar, when beginning to answer the question, he said, guys, I want you to learn by my mistakes. This is brilliant because us Europeans, we are so focused on the mistakes. Where did we go wrong? We want everything to go perfect, etc. But guess what? It never does. I love the American mindset of like, every step of the way, I'm going to learn something. And I'm sure you're going to tell us maybe, Dawar, I'm sure at Burger King, at like the gym jobs, those small jobs that are so hard to do. I'm sure that you got the motivation and determination to go very far for the rest of your life.
Oh, I think everyone should take those types of jobs because I think if you can manage to control your emotions with a job that you deal with people on a day-to-day basis, I think if you have that mindset in any field of work you take with you, you can like accomplish so much. Because I think at the end of the day, the root of any job, you're gonna be required to like deal with others and all of these things. So if you can learn how to navigate that at these jobs and at the pay that they are at, which is like minimum wage, it teaches you the value of money, how to like be kind to people because you see others that aren't, and you learn how to like communicate with others as well. So you get a lot of learning experience from those.
Guys, even if I'm a billionaire, I will send my kids to work at McDonald's. I'm sorry, I'm a harsh father, but this is the way. Brother, I want you to tell me, you could have wanted to be a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer. What inspired you to pursue a career in software engineer? Are you happy with that choice, which so much sacrifice has been into? Do you want to continue? Are you very ambitious?
So what's funny about this choice is, as I mentioned, I was going into advertising in college, but before that in high school, I was actually very in tune with coding and I was taking coding classes and I was excelling really well at it. I even got a minor scholarship towards development at one of the colleges, but at that time, being young, I was like, oh man, I don't want to do this. This is for like nerds. And like, that's not me. I want to be cool. Like typical kid thoughts. And when I pursued advertising, I slowly learned that that was more so an interest more than something that I saw myself doing like all the time. And Allah always has his way to, if something is meant for you, I think it comes full circle to you when you're ready for it. And I think with that boot camp being so tough, I was finally like mentally prepared to actually take on what comes with like the life of a software engineer, which is you're problem solving all the time. So I don't think I was confident maybe back then when I was a kid, and I turned down that. But now through that boot camp and through my mentor who was my professor for it, I think it really shifted my mindset again and regained my confidence. So I'm really alhamdulillah grateful for like that full circle that happened with this opportunity. And it's made me re-enjoy like software engineering, computer science, and tech. And I love what I do, and I hope I continue to grow in it, inshallah.
Honestly, you're very well educated. God bless your parents. I love doing this podcast because I see people from all around the world and their mindset, how they think of their values in success. Honestly, very good education. God bless your parents, brother. I want to know, when did the thought of working at JPMorgan? JPMorgan, a very prestigious bank. When did the thought of working there cross your mind? And how did you plan to make this objective come true?
So the thought did not come at all until 2 months of my internship, or not internship, the learning part of my boot camp remaining. Because up until that point, what was really unique about my professor and I, and again, I think everything ties in, and I always laugh about it afterwards, but my professor was actually Muslim himself as well.
Amazing.
And the last remaining month, we had Ramzan coming up. And my brain already felt so tired from learning this brand new field. And my professor, he was like, listen, if you do anything with intention in your mind, you can make anything possible. And then he was like the one, because he was very harsh the whole time. He was telling me like, this career isn't for me. And but he knows how I work. Like when someone tells me I can't do something, I want to combat it. So he was like love-hate relationship. But he kept doing that. But then with the 2 months remaining and the Ramzan coming up, he knew I was like getting really like drained. So he was like, I think you can make Fortune 500 company your first time around. And I think you should go for the biggest financial company, JP. He's like, I think you can do it. So then literally 2 months, like with the boot camp remaining, that came into my mind that inshallah, I think I can do it. If I keep my intention with Ramzan, power through that, and make the application that I needed to present to JP, then I got this. So alhamdulillah, that's what happened.
Hey, you have an amazing mindset, huh? I'm really inspired. You have a really winning type of mindset. I love this.
It's because of the people that are behind me, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
I think it takes a whole community to truly make someone like prosper.
I wish you to go very far. I love this mindset.
Likewise for you, bro.
This does not surprise me. This is really like the American way, like very determined. They believe in something that the number one company told himself, it's gonna be possible. I'm gonna do it. Honestly, brilliant. I love this. Absolutely love this. You told us about your professor. How did you get to know him? Because your relationship to him is very interesting. Like it was a kind of mentor, and I believe very firmly in mentorship. So can you tell us, how did you find and build that connection?
So that connection was very tough to actually establish because he truly did. I don't think I've spoken to other boot campers. There's various boot camps that you can do across the states and I think internationally as well. But with my specific teacher, he truly taught it like a boot camp, like it was military style. He is ex-military and he's from Africa. And when he came here, he was a prince back home. So he had all of the money, like from his parents and everything. But when he moved to the States with just his mom, and he has like a really sad story about losing his father and all these things, which we were able to discuss and bond over. But the biggest thing was which I appreciated, and he told me later on, was like his mentality and grit. He was like, I've always been a very angry person, but I didn't know how to channel it in a positive way. So he was like, I see that same rage in you. Because I was the only one that would kind of like in class, everyone would sit in silence and get yelled at by him about like not being able to do it. But one day, like I was the only one that like stood up. I was like, hey, okay, maybe none of us understand this, but you can't talk to other people like this at all. And then he like pulled me to the side that day and he had like a whole conversation about like managing your faith, your emotions, and just trusting in Allah and making just like not worrying about like anything that's immediately in front of you because there's gonna be, a path that follows it afterwards. So anytime like I didn't think that I would be able to get through the program because I was having like a tough time. We would just like go into a private room. He would remind me, make your du'as. If you do it with intention, intention has always been like a huge thing now for me. As long as you lead with intention, and it can't be a like bad thought, any bad thought with it, any hesitation with it. If you lead with proper intention, what you're going to be doing, why you're doing it, you always need that why. And I think like you'll go far.
Totally agree. But, coding, you had a bit of knowledge already in like marketing, communication when you were already doing very good in coding, but not at the same level as today. But you had already an idea of what was coding. But then making it actually your job, now working like full time into it, is it up to your expectations and how you envision the field of software engineer?
I think it's a little bit more challenging for sure, but I think that is necessary for at least my personal lifestyle. Like, I think other people who are listening some people might agree. I don't like school that much. And then what's nice about software engineering is they don't care more so about your educational background. It's more so what can you do? What can you build? So, like, that's why even boot campers are allowed to work at these Fortune 500 companies because it doesn't matter if you have a master's degree in computer science. If there's a 17-year-old kid that knows how to protect the infrastructure of your code, they're going to choose that person over the master's degree person because that's actually physical work to show for it. So I do really love that part of it because I'm very tangible in the way that I learn. So when my code is finally successful, and some weeks definitely are like stressful, you might not solve something, even like a line of code might take you a week or 2 weeks, but when you do, it's very rewarding, and I love that constant like learning and problem solving as you go.
The problem solving, yeah, I know that for me, which is almost in the same field, it's really like you get so much excitement when you actually solve the problem.
Yep.
And you can be by yourself, like in a room with no one, and you can be like, yay, I made it.
Yep. I feel like every single time that the code is successful, I feel like a NASA launch, like just high-fiving the air by myself. Successfully.
But I wanted to know, because it's interesting, you were saying certain things about schools. It's true that, I follow a bit like geopolitics worldwide. Biden has removed the little hope that students could get their student loans raised in the States. And I wanted to know, it's true that in the States, the universities are very, very expensive. It's almost like a life loan sometimes. But, in Europe, just so you know, for instance, French and German universities, they're almost free. So that's the thing. Do you think that the population in the States, the youth, are beginning to rethink their choice of actually guiding themselves towards universities, that maybe I can do a certificate in cybersecurity, in software engineering, that I could make a very, very decent living, let's say? And do you think they're rethinking this choice of choosing a university?
Oh, I definitely think so, with opportunities like these presenting themselves, not only in software, but I think it's going to be progressing to other fields as well. At least that's the hope, where like it's more so again about like you actually showing that experience and work through like projects that you've made yourself. Because I know plenty of contractors in art, let's say like architecture or marketing, where they can do mock-ups and they're working with companies aside from even having to go to college for it. So I think that's a huge shift in a lot of people's mindsets.
Exactly. What are some platforms and resources you would advise anyone who would want to start learning about software engineering?
Sure. So, and these are like immediate self-taught things that you can do yourself, because that's essentially how my boot camp was run. So these resources I used literally to make full stack applications. For those of you that know, that is both like a back end of an application and the front end, like the design work. So these websites will teach you about both. So if you're interested either in being a back end engineer, a front end engineer, or a full stack engineer, you can learn everything. So the first one, very common, I think everyone knows, is YouTube for any specific questions. But if you want to actually like build off of other people's projects and get some ideas, github.com. That's actually where you store all of your repositories. Yeah, I know you know as well. That's a great way to that's basically like an engineer's portfolio. You can get a lot of jobs, including like myself. That's how I was able to present projects that I've built on my GitHub repository. I just, were able to clone them and show whoever I needed to show right then and there. So it's a great resource to check out other people's ideas as well. And then W3 Schools and Codecademy specifically are the websites that I use. W3 Schools has a lot of front end answers that you'll get specifically, and then Codecademy has both front end and back end. And they're always running promotions too. You can get away with doing the free courses and kind of like getting more details from YouTube for your answers, and honestly, ChatGPT as well. But my thing with using ChatGPT, because I know even a lot of younger engineers that are coming in right now, be mindful of it because like you're not actually learning how to code then at all. So use it as a very, very last resort. You need to still be going to stackoverflow.com to be breaking down how to actually become a problem solver, because that's what my professor taught me and what helped me really understand software engineering. It's not about math, it's not about science, and it's not about all of these things. There's a problem and it can be solved. So you just need to break down that problem and solve it by asking yourself questions that will eventually help you figure out the solution. That's what the root of engineering is.
Love this approach, and I appreciate so much you having a list precisely saying number one, number two. Excellent, brother. And I would advise also W3 Schools. I thought I was one of the only ones to use it, but it appears not. So I'm really happy that I'm not the only one. And for ChatGPT, that's the thing, guys. I'm talking to the youth. You're basically copying. You're not like thinking of the solution. AI is thinking of the solution. So, sometimes we're in a bootcamp, you're going to struggle for 2 hours to find a solution. But the learning you got to get through those 2 hours, it's never any close with ChatGPT because the AI is reflecting for you. And one day, if you want to pitch for, I don't know, you have a Google interview or Microsoft interview, well, you're on your own. So I think learning is really like the basis, I would say. Very good. Brother, can you tell us for JPMorgan, how was the interview? How did you run through all the process, the steps? Was it stressful?
So what's nice, alhamdulillah, about like the boot campers that come into JP, the interview process is slightly different than a regular engineer that comes in. So for a regular engineer that comes in, the process is still a typical whiteboard interview where they will be asking you questions, most likely from like HackerRank. So if you're looking for that route of engineering, definitely utilize HackerRank because a lot of the Fortune 500 companies get their questions from there directly. So it's good to be brushing up on those questions and being able to break them down. Another thing that's nice about it, if you're able to pass your first interview, there is multiple rounds. Even if you get a question wrong, they're looking for how you think more than if you can get the answer right, because oftentimes there's always multiple ways to solve one solution. So they more so want to be able to see, are you going to quit because something's not working, or are you going to like break it down and formulate why maybe your solution's not working? And if then from there, someone else can bounce off of that idea and you can communicate with them to build that solution that will work in the end. And then for boot campers, what's nice is those projects that you're basically working on, those projects are specific to whichever industry that you kind of want to go towards. So since I was going towards the banking industry, the full stack applications that I was working on were related to financing and banking. So that way, that 4-year learning curve that I was competing against someone that would be like going to college for, I have that advantage on them now because I have like direct applications that the company would also be, like looking at similar lines of code and what that infrastructure is doing as far as security and all of that. So when you are able to present that portfolio, you can get hired on as a consultant and work with them to catch up to code with theirs. And then if you do well, then you can get hired on as a full-time.
That's excellent. And I think you beginning to work for JP Morgan, I think it's going to give you an edge for the rest of your career. Alhamdulillah, this is very good.
Yeah.
Let's talk to the non-technical audience. They might not envision what a software engineer does. Can you tell us in a day, what is your daily routine working as a software engineer? What are the most recurrent tasks that you handle?
Sure. So even though like a lot of people talk about like, oh, tech, you get to work by yourself a lot, remote, the code that you work on is being worked on with a lot of people. So you have to, a typical day-to-day basis is going to be, communicating with your team members. It's called a daily stand-up. I think most companies are doing this kind of agile method, but you have 15 minutes every single day with your team where you're kind of discussing what you worked on yesterday with the code, what you're going to work on today, and any issues that you're having. And the reason why you need to do that, because you can't have discrepancies with two people working on the same line of code. So you just have to have those communications happen. And then you kind of spend your day working on your portions of the code. You'll take your lunch, you'll take your breaks whenever you need to. They're very relaxed about, like if you need that proper like walk to kind of think it out. JP, especially my office, what's nice is like there's even all of our walls you can write on. They're like dry erase walls. So as you come up with solutions when you're walking, you can kind of like write it down and take a picture of it and head back to your desk and continue to work on your code. And then as you finish up your code, maybe in the evening, you test out your code, you get one of your teammates to look over it, they validate it, and then you submit it for, the business side to do as they do with it.
Honestly, Davar, hearing you, it looks like JP Morgan is really like a tech company. It sounds like Airbnb, Google, Microsoft. It sounds like the same.
Yeah, that's what they're trying to garner themselves. Even though they come from financial background, they're like, no, we should separate our tech buildings to be adjacent to what the other tech industries are doing. So it's really nice.
Yeah, it's very nice. And I feel that the tech population, when you leave them with like creativity, freedom, give them the means to do their project, etc., they really like come up with brilliant end results. Amazing. Brother, can you tell us like to get to know the demographics in your floor? Is there any Muslim or are you the only one?
So my building is 4 floors. And I would say there's probably like, at least from what I've seen, like maybe like 10 per floor.
Whoa, very good.
And it's been growing more and more. And it's really nice because, we have our fellow sisters as well that are wearing hijab comfortably around the office. No one says anything. And as mentioned, we have that prayer room as well where I can see like the other Muslims and meet them as well. So it's nice.
It makes me so happy, but it makes me also sad because in France, and this is a little confidence that I will do to the audience, and I hope in the future, I think I'm gonna ask one of my brothers to interview me once I will leave France. But in France, for instance, a woman cannot wear the hijab on the workplace. It's terrible. It's terrible. I think France, as a Muslim, it's the worst country, I think, in the world, to be honest, to work. That's why I really want to invite more sisters, more hijabis. If any sister wants to reach out, she has made it in the corporate world. She can inspire our sisters, younger sisters, to follow their path. It would be amazing. So reach out, please. Otherwise, that's brilliant. But can you tell us, can we make anything to encourage our community to pursue careers in tech? Do you have any idea, for instance, like in Canada, I have seen they have community centers where they gather the elders with the youth. They have like mentorship sessions. They can do sport together. So it's a whole community vibe, which is amazing. Do you think that we lack those type of initiatives, for instance, in your state in particular? And what kind of ideas do you think we should do even more?
I don't think it lacks, but I think we should definitely make more aware to a lot of people that think of the typical route of having to get that degree and then, being able to pursue your life from there. If we kind of like promote more so that like now, because everyone comes from different, financial backgrounds. So especially in the US, the means for a college education are, they're becoming harder and harder to attain for the common middle class and, lower because of all of the inflation and all of these things. So I think just vocalizing more and making more aware to people that there is opportunities out there like the boot camp that I did that you can condense both the cost that it will cost you to get an education and also the turnaround to start making a means of income at a very young age. I think that's the only things that are kind of missing. And to sweeten it, I mean, you just need to tell them that engineers get paid, alhamdulillah, very well. And there is, even full remote opportunities as well.
Brother, just a last question, I guess. We have a few Pakistanis which have to partake in this project. You said that at 3 years old, you came from Lahore. What brought your family to the US? Why did they choose the US? Do you know? And what was their idea?
So the idea behind that, which I'm very grateful for my dad, alhamdulillah, he realized at a very young age that he wanted us to be able to not have the common stereotypes of what it comes as like a South Asian, the routes that you have to take. Especially the eldest in my family is a girl. So the eldest is a girl and a leader, which it was at the time. I think Pakistan's gotten a lot more progressive with it, but it wasn't looked for women to pursue that higher education and continue to pursue what they want in life. It was more so just about being a stay at home and taking care of the family. So my dad moved all of us to America to have that chance to, pursue whatever we wanted, to avoid the noise and just chase what each individual wanted to. And I'm very grateful, and I see now like the power of that decision, because like my sister is working on her PhD now and is like a very successful therapist. My brother was very successful with changing a lot of people's mindsets in the States with his YouTube channel and is successful in his 9 to 5 while doing all of that. And alhamdulillah, I was able to work at a Fortune 500 company. And I think, like I said, going full circle again, we're always placed in the places that are intended for us because we're not the actual pilots of the seat. Life will take you where you're supposed to be. And I'm very, very alhamdulillah blessed to be where I am today.
Very good. With your permission, Dawar, I will leave the YouTube channel of your brother in the show notes.
Yeah, sure.
If anybody wants to check it out, feel free to do so. Try to support also our community. It's very important. Dawar, any upcoming projects or initiatives? You seem someone who always doing something. Anything that you're gonna start soon or have started that you're excited about that you would like to share with the audience?
Sure. So aside from like software engineering, you had mentioned another really big passion of mine is bodybuilding. And I recently won bodybuilding competition in Maryland.
Amazing.
For men's physique. So that gave me a lot of confidence in what I know about like South Asians' diets now. And I really want to also change the South Asian physique so we can have that confidence and look our best against other genetics, and just want people to see that like even our genetics are really strong in athletics, not just education.
This does not surprise me because I see the competitive side of you. I see this. It's I love your confidence, your mindset. I love this. That was all for us, this podcast. Honestly, this was a brilliant talk and very symbolic for me. This was the last one for the first season. Really excited about the next season. Some locations that we have not explored yet in this podcast, in this first season. So really excited. Thank you so much, Dawar. Jazakallahu khairan for sharing your experiences, being transparent, your insights, advice with us. Thank you so much, my brother.
Thank you for having me, Shaheen. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, brother. And if anyone in the audience wants to seek out advice, our brother Dawar has been very kind and agreed to share his LinkedIn, which I will put on the show notes. So if you want to ask any type of advice, any practical advice, you can ask him. It's been a pleasure to have you all along the first season. And inshallah, I will see you on the next one. Thank you so much, Dawar. Assalamu alaikum. That's all for today's episode, guys. We hope you enjoyed it and learned something new. If you have any feedback or suggestion for future episodes, please reach out to us on our social media channels. And don't forget, please, to subscribe, rate and review our show on your favorite podcast platform. This would really help us a lot. Until next time, well, stay inspired, stay curious, and keep changing the game.